Coach Johnson, coming off last weekend, it looked like you guys played a lot better basketball, more consistent at least. You made a couple good runs at a couple quality teams. Talk about last week and moving ahead.
Yeah, it's a tough situation to be in where you're trying to kind of break momentum and get it going in a positive way when you're on the road against a 9-4 conference team and a 12-2 conference team. But we definitely took steps. We played better in different areas both nights. Still, our offense is one of our biggest struggles right now. Is being able to score enough points to get over the hump. We gave up, I think, 76 to Mankato, who's averaging in the high 80s. We only gave up 71 the night before. We just really struggled to put enough points together. But I was really happy with how we played. We were ahead at halftime at Mankato. We're ahead for a big portion of the second half. Then kind of got in a rut where we didn't score. We turned it over a couple times. They got a couple really good players that made some big-time plays, and we just didn't have an answer for it down the stretch. And Concordia was maybe a little bit similar to a lot of games you've seen us play. We dropped down to about 10 or 11 and then came kind of storming back and had a shot to put it into overtime at the buzzer that didn't go in. But, overall, I can't complain about their effort at all. We just got to play a little bit better. And, the start of practice this week has been great. So I'm excited about trying to get over the hump at home here this weekend.
Yeah, you seem to, in both the Concordia game and the Minnesota State game, you had really good stretches at times. I mean, you made a great run at Concordia, and you very nearly caught them. And then the Minnesota State game against a nationally ranked opponent, you guys controlled the action for a great share of that game, led over 23 minutes. So that's got to build a little positive feeling in the team. When you go through a stretch like you've gone through, you're looking for those positives, right?
Yeah, you want you don't want especially your younger players to forget about the process because the results aren't what they want them to be, and you have to keep pushing forward with the process. And we're playing better for longer stretches, but we still haven't put, this is a really good league, and you got to put together 40 minutes or darn near it every night to have a chance to win. And I thought all but about a 5-minute stretch against Mankato, we were really good. Same thing against Concordia, but in those 5-minute stretches, we're losing a little bit of touch with teams and having to use a lot of energy and stuff to get back into those games. And with Mankato, we really controlled it. We handled the game was played at the pace and the way we wanted it to be played or needed it to be played, except for about a 5-minute stretch. And so when we can get to that point where we don't have that lull, we're going to start winning games again here.
Mac Johnson is one of the players that's really stepped up in the last few games. He's led the team in scoring, I think, the last 3 games, and he really started out on fire. Wasn't necessarily hitting the threes, but he was making some of the medium range jumpers fall down. He was 10 of 19 in the field against Minnesota State. He had 16 points against Concordia. Charles Ward also had a pretty good weekend. Talk about those two players in terms of how they performed for you this week.
Well, they were really good. They're really good almost every night. We'd like Mac to be a little bit more consistent with some of his shooting, but it's not a lack of trying. He's our best shooter. He just went through a little bit of a slump. And Charles is more of a scorer than a pure shooter, but hit 4 threes against Minnesota State. Those two guys have never been our problem. We're getting about 35, 40 points a night out of those guys on any given night. It's trying to get the other 30 or 40 from the other guys is where we've struggled. And the games where we've beaten, a really good Missouri Southern team and Young Harris and some of these other teams, we've had that third or fourth guy really step up. And that's been, what we've been trying to do. I thought Jordan Stotts took some big steps last weekend towards getting back to being the guy that we had most of last year. And a lot of it was just confidence. It wasn't a lack of effort or anything like that, but just starting to play more like Jordan. And, if he can be that third guy and we can get BK going, we can start making some steps here.
Talk about the young guys. Zach Wessels came in and played pretty good minutes for you, and so did Tom Acey. He was, I think it was 7 points and 7 rebounds in the most recent game. And so if you can get more production from those players, that's going to be really key for you moving forward.
Yeah, well, those two are big pieces of our future. Zach is going to be the point guard here for a long time. And, he a little baptism by fire. You got to play Zach Monahan. in your second start of your career. And I know Monahan had, I think, 23, but I thought Zach played really well. I mean, you just have to give Monahan some credit. He's a senior returning All-American for a reason. And
He's
but
a
Zach,
great player.
yeah, Zach battled him. He had, I think it was 8 or 9 assists and 3 turnovers on the weekend. I mean, he's playing within himself. He's really helping our team. And Tom is kind of that workhorse guy. He's going to block a couple shots for you. He's going to get a couple low boards, a couple putbacks for you, and he's just going to play the game the right way. And it's nice having those guys on the floor and on our team, but it's also those guys played together for 3 years in high school and have a pretty good feel for each other.
It's going to be big for this weekend. You got a couple teams coming in that are in the middle of the pack. Minnesota Duluth. They've had kind of an up and down year, but they're 7-7 in the league. St. Cloud State, who have talk about one of the better players in the conference, Jordan Poydras is right there. I mean, he does a lot of things well, and they score a lot of points. So could be a lot of action this weekend, right?
Yeah, the Duluth game might be a little bit of a rock fight. They don't play real fast. We don't play real fast right now. And both teams are pretty good defensively. Duluth, we've kind of had an up and down deal since we've been in the league with them. None of the games have been real close when we've won or when they've won. And so they've got one of the best post players in the league in Brett Irvin, who can cause us all sorts of problems. He's been player of the week. He was preseason, I think, North player of the year last year before he got injured, and he might have been again this year. I don't remember. But that'll be a tough one. They're a physical team, really well coached. And then Saturday, I mean, St. Cloud wants to play fast. Like you said, Jordan Poydras is, I think, over his last 5 or 6 games, averaging almost 30 points a game. And, we played them twice last year because we played them in the tournament too. We were pretty familiar with them, even though they're a North opponent. We played them a lot in the non-conference before we got into the Northern Sun. So we have a pretty good idea of what they'll try to do to us, but more of a high-powered game that, we don't want to let it get into the 80s on Saturday, or that could pose us some problems.
Finally, you talked about your practices being a positive this week moving forward. Does that really give you some momentum going into the weekend now?
Yeah, it's always. I've been doing this long enough to know that I've seen teams have bad weeks of practice and play great, and have great weeks of practice and not play great. But for the most part, how you practice throughout the week is normally what you're getting on Friday and Saturday nights. And I thought Monday was probably the best practice we've had all year, and one of the best practices I've ever been a part of. And for them to come off of a losing streak and a road trip and show up on Monday like that gives you hope that it's not even hope, it makes you know that they're really still into it. They still realize what we have to get better at, and they're still working towards what we need to do.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.